All right, we have a fun show today. With the camera switch, you see
It
that?
did. You took a pause.
All right, go for it
It's
now.
is that quick?
Yeah.
All right, here we
I
go.
don't know
Three. Let's do it. Okay, hold on.
This
let
is
me
the
see.
thing that we keep tweaking.
This is. I know. Bill say this is our new system. We're playing with this. We're trying to understand it. All right, we have a fun show today. We're going to take a little bit of a ride along. We have a return guest. David Neel, former executive director of the Murphy Auto Museum, is joining us in studio. I get to ride along in his 1964 Jeep Wagoneer. This is so much fun. We're going to talk about some of the new Jeeps that are out there. Dan can talk about how much he hates those or something equivalent of.
Is that what I'm going to do?
Yeah, that's what you're going to do. And then also, we're wondering, has the state of California come after you with your brakes? Now, if you haven't thought about this, this is an interesting topic. I hadn't thought about it until Gabe and Dan, they've been doing some research behind my back, and they came up with something really interesting. We're going to talk about that as well, right?
Yes.
Okay. All right, so let's introduce David Neel. As I said, former executive director of the Murphy Auto Museum, who's got a lot of time on his hands these days. Welcome back.
Glad to be back. Thank you for having me again.
And thank you for bringing your beautiful green 1964 Jeep Wagoneer. That's
Yes.
gorgeous.
Yes, I've had that vehicle for 11 years. And you don't see many of them on the road, which makes it even more fun to drive and to own.
And it's so original. That's the part I love about it.
Yes, there's been no aftermarket ads. There's been nothing done to that truck. I did have the engine rebuilt once upon a time, but other than that, it is bone stock.
Yeah. And that has a history from the East Coast, which makes it even more amazing that it's in the condition it's in.
So I bought that through a dealer online. It was bought by him in an estate sale. It came out of Pennsylvania. I think the last time that vehicle was driven is the last time it was registered, which was 1984. And the reason I know that is in the driver's windshield corner, there's a state of Pennsylvania safety sticker that's punched 1984. So it was 30 years off the road until I got it out here to California.
And you don't think it had the typical rough life that some of these old Jeeps might have had. In other words, it wasn't working on a ranch. It's in such great shape, and you think over those years it was kind of tucked away.
Yeah, I think the demands placed upon it were relatively minor. I have no idea who the owners were, but you can just tell there's no rust on the frame. There is some rust a little bit under the fender, but that's very common for old trucks like that. But there's no rust on the fenders. The rockers are clean. The glass is very, very clean and original. The inside still has the vinyl floor mats.
Mm-hmm.
It's just it's a survivor. And you know that the paint job is original. It had a little touch up done in one section, but it's a survivor, so it doesn't hurt to drive it around. You know, you get these older cars that have been restored and spent all this money. You're afraid to take them anywhere. And this one, you just take it to the store, go down here, go over there, and you're not going to hurt it. And it's a cool factor. Either way, it's a cool factor.
Yeah, and you live right down the street from Gabe.
Yeah, I
here.
saw you on the
And
way
you-
to the studio this morning. I'm like, whoa, what the hell?
And you did see him this morning.
No, I did. I literally saw him
Oh.
passing by me down Kimball. I was like, whoa, dang.
And did you realize that was the
yeah,
Jeep that
it
was going to be on
stands
the
out.
show today?
First of all, it's a Jeep, and it's turquoise.
But you didn't know you guys
Never
were
seen
neighbors.
Another one.
No, I didn't know we were neighbors. I thought you
That's
lived in Santa Paula.
Yeah, so my business, my real job is out there, but I've been living in East Ventura since 2000. Yeah,
Wow.
yeah.
East Ventura, that's where it's at, dude.
Yeah.
Mhm.
No,
It's 004, man. That's where it is.
Well, I love the Jeep. It's got a great history to it. It's in great shape. You've added some nice little personal touches to it. I like the fishing poles in the back. It looks like it's ready to hit the road and go fishing.
So thrift shops are my best friend, and I rarely buy anything from those. It's fun to look, but every now and then you see something you've got to have.
Yeah.
And so I found an old fishing pole, just for fun. I bought at the toy store a kitty little plastic cowboy holster with two little plastic guns with ivory handles. I don't know if you saw it, but it's hanging off of that, just to kind of put it in the right place.
Don't mess with my
adventure,
Jeep.
a little bit of Western, adventure, going fishing,
Yeah.
going shooting. Don't mess with me. Yeah.
Last time you were on our show, you talked about the trailer boat.
Yes.
And we got, that clip almost went viral. We put that into a little short, and it went viral, and I didn't realize how many people are into that. And it seems to me, like, especially from the comments, that there's like a pattern with people that are into these things. I call them nerds, but whatever.
We are.
I'm respectful. But the Wagoneer nerds or whatever, they're into the vintage trailers, like the Airstreams. They're into thrift shops,
Which you're into. You like.
They're into mid-century modern.
Yep.
They're into cute little toy guns. I mean, would you say that's a pretty accurate statement with people that are into these types of vehicles?
Yes, they're out there. They're among us. You don't know. You don't know because they go to work and have jobs like everybody else, but they do come out on the weekends, and you have to go find them. But when you find them, there's a whole tribe of them.
So when you get into a vehicle, like, do you switch personas? Do you switch modes, or like do you dress differently in these cars? Because I've seen people dress in all kinds of get-ups, like old school 50s outfits and 60s outfits. Not like like they're pretending they're at Mel's Diner or whatever, but something like. Do you get in a different type of vibe when you drive that car?
Yes.
Yeah.
So I didn't go full geek on you all, but I usually have a straw cowboy hat that I wear in that thing because it goes with the vibe.
Right.
And when I go camping on these vintage camping adventures with my other like friends, we now some people, the women wear the hoop skirts and all this. I don't necessarily go for the leisure suits and all these costume changes. I typically just stick with Levi's, a pearl button shirt, a cowboy hat, and boots.
Do you think you would have worn that back in those days if you were around in those days?
Probably.
Yeah.
Yeah, probably.
This seems like a pretty typical outfit, like a working man.
Yeah, yeah.
Family man, vacation guy in the 50s.
And I don't think nobody doesn't like dressing like that. Nobody doesn't, oh, that guy looks like a, weirdo. No, when you have Levi's and a Western shirt with a pearl button snaps, it's cool. It's fun.
It is, yeah.
So this whole group, this whole genre, do you think it's like a subculture, or like because like people aren't dressing like this to work and they're not taking these vehicles to work? It's like this whole like separate identity kind of thing.
100%.
Okay.
If we're going to talk about that, now that's a different show. But since you teased me, I will just say that California has many vintage trailer events throughout the year. The big one, as we record this, the big one is coming this month. It's up in Pismo. There'll be about 300 trailers up there, and people completely transform into the era or the genre of what their trailer and sometimes tow rig is. And then there's one in September up in Buellton. That's a big one. Benelli Bluffs happens in March. That's gone. We just passed that.
Well, the Buellton one you organized for a while.
Yeah, so I ran Buellton for 14 years.
Okay.
And I just didn't feel I had any more creativity anymore, so I handed that off, but it's still going.
But I'll tell you, I went to a bunch of those when David was doing them. They are so much fun. It's almost like stepping back in time to some extent, because you're right. People get into character, and you walk in, you see these. I mean, you got a mixture of maybe some restored trailers, and you see some really original trailers, but the people are dressed up.
Yes.
So this is like the original Comic-Con.
I guess you could look at it that way.
I mean, because if you've ever been to Comic-Con, they go
Yeah,
all out.
all
And they
out.
get into character.
Yeah.
So I don't know if anybody's getting into character like the Lucy and Ricky, characters, but.
Well, and this is a multi-day thing. People are sleeping.
Yes.
They were sleeping it's in a campground, so they sleep. And I mean, you just kind of visit with everybody for 3-4 days. And people, was it 2 or 3 days or 3 or 4 days?
It starts on a Thursday, and it winds up on, everyone goes home on a Sunday.
Okay,
Some
yeah,
people
all right.
come earlier and stay later. But there's an open house event on the Saturday of whatever rally it is, wherever it is. There's always an open house event on Saturday. And so that's when the folks really dress up, and they put period correct things outside, and they encourage you to go inside the trailer.
Yeah.
In car shows,
No
keep your
touchy.
hands off,
That's
no
cool.
touchy.
Yeah.
When you get trailer events, vintage trailer events, they want you inside the trailer.
Do we see pipes and cigars being broken out? I mean, do they go that far?
Like crack pipes?
No, pipes.
Oh,
take a look.
It's a family show, easy.
I was about to say.
Ward cleaver.
Cigars,
Yeah.
definitely, like single malts. I see a lot of the dudes,
Yeah.
tipping it back.
Cigarettes? Vintage cigarettes?
I wouldn't say
Unfiltered
that.
Camels?
No, those are kind of
Okay.
poo-poo. It's cigars and
Cigars and okay.
and adult beverages.
That
Yeah,
makes
yeah,
sense.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I've seen the adult beverage. I've seen
Okay,
the
no-
effects
no-
of that.
no reefer.
Definitely.
Got it.
No,
No
no,
reefer.
no.
No reefer.
Well,
No, no.
It's not of the
There's
right.
always going to be a 420 crowd somewhere.
It's
Well,
not,
but
it's not the right era.
It's period correct.
not
Don't
the
you
right
call it
era.
reefer in the 50s and 60s? Don't they call it reefer?
Yeah, but beatniks wouldn't have trailers.
That's true.
Right?
But
Am I
there are
right, Dave?
VW buses out there.
Oh,
Yeah.
really?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
yeah.
you do see the Westphalias.
man.
Some
Yeah.
nice
Oh,
ones
okay.
too. Yeah,
Yeah.
some nice ones. Yeah.
Maybe there are some jazzbos and beatniks out
Jazz
there. Right?
bow? What the hell's a jazz bow?
David knows what a jazzbo is, right?
What's a jazz bow?
That's a new one on me.
That's a new
No.
one on me too. Which
Oh
one is it?
wow,
Jazz
that was a derogatory term for beatniks that are listening to jazz in the
Oh,
coffee
I
shops.
didn't
Like
know
those
that.
jazzbos,
okay.
those beatniks. Yeah,
Oh, right.
It's
Okay.
from some movie. I've seen it.
Oh man. Okay, so let's tie this back to the Jeep
Sure.
because you would
Yes.
you would tow some of the vintage trailers with the Jeep.
Mm-hmm.
So it has enough torque to do that.
It does.
Yeah.
So really, the only thing you would need is the fender-mounted trailer mirrors, because you have to be able to see
Nice
the
big
trailer,
wide ones.
big
yeah.
wide ones.
Yeah.
And it was all done with gearing. Now, the first generation Jeep Wagoneers, like what I have, they only came with a straight six engine. By about 1965, 65 or 66, they introduced a V8. So it became a little. You got there quicker with the V8. But be that as it may, a six gets you there. It's very torquey, and it's just going through the gears, using the gears to slow you down. And that's an old school trick people don't do now. I mean, they don't know what it is, but when you are pulling a trailer with with a stick shift, you use the gears to slow you down, save your brakes.
What kind of mileage do you get? I'm curious.
Who knows?
Some.
You know,
He gets some mileage.
You've never tried.
You don't
it.
want
I
know.
fill it up once every 8 weeks, and
Oh, okay.
away we go.
Well, you don't drive it much.
I don't
so,
drive it
yeah.
much. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
So first year of that generation, 62?
63.
63.
Yeah.
Okay, I knew I was close, but
Yeah. So if I can bore you with some factoids.
absolutely.
Factoids.
So after
And it won't bore us. Go ahead.
as well, first of all, the Jeep came to be because right before World War II, right before America got into World War II, the Army had put out a spec for a vehicle that would replace the horse. That's where the Jeep came from. It needed to be able to go over streams, shallow rivers, needed to be able to seat people, needed to be able to transport wounded, needed to be able to go up a hill, needed to be able to tow a tank on a trailer. And a little company out of Pennsylvania called Bantam came up with this prototype, as did Ford, as did Kaiser, or as did Willys. And Bantam won. They won the bid.
Bantam, the manufacturer that makes the small little cars?
Yes,
Yeah.
they
Micros?
won the bid for this multi-purpose vehicle, general purpose GP. General purpose is what the Army called it, and they just came in as Jeep. If you say GP quickly, it's Jeep. So that's where people think that Jeep
cool.
means, the modern people think Jeep means just everybody else's parts. That's not what it means. GP is general purpose. Well, Little Bantam, the government said, well, Little Bantam, you're too small. So we're going to take your design, we're going to give you some money, we're going to take your design, and we're going to rebid. And so Willys came up with it. And Willys won the contract, and that's the Army Jeep you see that's in World War II. And then everybody made it.
Wait, so was it Bantam or Willys that changed it to JEEP? Or
It was the government called it general purpose, and then people just said Jeep. So that it was never spelled out JEEP. It was
I
all,
didn't know.
it
That's
was
so
all
cool.
GP, general purpose.
That's a cool factoid.
And then it came
Yeah.
out as Jeep.
Because you see, the early ones will say Willys.
Right, right.
And my first builds was a 46 Willys, Jeep Willys.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I took out the four banger and dropped a 283 in it. And
What was
had
Willys
fun.
doing before they made the Jeep? Like I know they're associated with the Jeep, but were they making cars?
They
or
made
trucks,
cars.
or-
They made sedans and coupes.
Okay.
A lot of
and
their
things
coupes
like
are
that.
probably the most famous ones because
Yeah.
they turn them into drag
I remember
stores.
being at
Yeah.
Lions as a kid, and 34 Willys coupe.
Yeah.
So that's what they were known for. They were like a coupe company.
Yes, correct.
Okay.
And then, so Ford made Jeeps, and the thing about that, Ford on bolts and certain parts of the fender, there's not the word Ford, but there's the cursive F from Ford, and that's how you would know if that Jeep was made by Kaiser or Ford. Didn't matter who made it. Everything had to be exact, because once you get in the theater, if a Jeep breaks down
Swap
and the
out
enemy's
parts.
coming real quick and you need a part and you see a spare part over there from some other Jeep that broke down, just change it out and you're gone. So any part is interchangeable from that era. But as the war drew to a close, and it was obvious that America was going to not be in the war anymore, Willys had to figure out what they were going to do next. And here's the other factoid. General Motors, Ford, Mopar, Packard, they all had first dibs at the machining dies that were going to stamp fenders and stamp doors. And so Willys goes to these vendors and they say, sorry, you're too small. We're not going to sell you parts to make fenders and doors and stamp roofs. So what they did, they went to the washing machine people who stamp washing machine bodies. And that Willys you just mentioned, the 46 or
Mine was
47.
a 46 CJ2A is what it was.
Well, it was, so it wasn't the wagon.
No,
Okay.
it was one of the small
Got you.
CJ2A.
Okay, so the Willys wagon and the Willys pickup that came out about 1946 or 47, if you look at them, the doors are very, there's a metal draw on the door. It's very shallow. And then think of a washing machine from that same time, or even through the 70s and 80s, there's a very shallow draw on the washing machine body. It's the same machine that made them.
Wow.
Because that's the only way they could get it back into the car business, and it was very innovative. So look it up.
Was it like Maytag or who? What the?
Whoever made the dies for the washing machine companies.
Oh, so it wasn't the actual washing
No,
machine. It was the, whoever
no.
made the
So they
dies.
went out to
Okay.
those people who made those dies. So if you look it up on the internet and you look up a Willys from like 1946 up to about 62, you'll see exactly what I mean. And they look good. They don't look terrible. They don't have contours, of course. They can't. But they don't look bad. But that's because they were stamped that way.
Wow, so interesting.
Yeah.
It really is. And I didn't know that about the Jeep.
Mm-hmm.
So when did they start actually stamping Jeep in the metal?
That I don't
60s?
know. I would
60s?
say probably after the war.
Okay.
Because you can look at a Jeepster or you can look at a CJ and you'll see the word Willys on the back. And then later I think they started putting Jeep on
Yeah,
there.
if I had to guess, I'd say maybe mid-50s. You think?
be,
Maybe
yeah.
early 50s when you see some of those early Jeeps? Wow. All right. Yeah, so the 63 for the Wagoneer. That was the first year.
This is a 64.
Right.
So
Yours is,
63 was the first year. This is a 64. There's no difference between the two.
And they kind of stayed the same for a while.
Well, they stayed the same. The body stayed the same from 63 to 1991.
Right.
The body is the same.
So I remember in the 90 ones or the 80s ones or whatever, they had like the wood paneling on the side.
Yep.
Or, is that the same body style as the one you have
Yep.
now? Really?
So they started moving the car upscale about, I would say, the late 70s, early 80s. You had the Wagoneer, and you had then the Grand Wagoneer. And the Grand Wagoneer was one up from the regular Wagoneer. You had the shag carpet, you had the bucket seats, not the bench seats. But they continually brought it up market till the very last year, which was 91. Chrysler owned them at that point. And it was just the most extravagant SUV you could buy. And they are highly collectible with what's been happening in the economy lately. The values have kind of gone down. But for a while, a pristine one would get 70, 80, 90,000.
Would you
see those
say
very
maybe
often.
before the pandemic, would you say? Just
before the pandemic, they were worth money. And then when the pandemic hit, they, like everything, they
okay.
went up.
All right.
And then they sort of gone down.
Okay.
But I think they're pretty rare. I mean, I almost never see those things ever out.
Yeah.
You know, so they must be. Were the production numbers very high?
They were pretty high for a niche manufacturer. You know, later became Kaiser. Kaiser bought Willys, and then Kaiser Steel. They sold it to AMC, and then AMC was bought by Chrysler. But through all those iterations, for a niche manufacturer, they sold quite a few. They made more money on building Jeeps than anything else. And the Jeep, like the CJ5 and the CJ7, they made money on those. But then the other cars they would make, like the Pacer and the Gremlin and the Sportabout and all this stuff, you know, they didn't sell
So
a
the
lot of those.
Wagoneer went through 3 manufacturers. It was
yes.
Kaiser.
Yeah, well, technically 4. So it started with Willys, then it became Kaiser, then it became AMC, and then it became Chrysler.
Wow.
And so then it was resurrected recently.
So about 2019, I'm not sure of the year. I'm maybe off a year. About 2019, Chrysler unveiled the new Wagoneer and the Grand Wagoneer. So there's a Wagoneer, Grand Wagoneer, and the intent of those is to compete with Range Rover, all the high-end SUVs.
How are they doing at sales? I mean,
they're
even,
not very good.
I don't see many of them
They're
around.
they're
do you?
actually awesome. I really like them. Like they look cool and all that stuff. There's some, from what I hear, there's a lot of issues with reliability.
Yep.
Might be a Stellantis thing or whatever, but I don't know if they're. Are they unibody or are they body on frame?
I believe they're unibody.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, they're
I-
not a truck anymore.
Yeah.
They're a car.
How do you feel about that, Dan?
SUVs.
Here it comes.
Let's talk SUVs. What's your guys'
Here it
opinions on SUVs? What, Dave? What's your opinion?
Well, I'm a
on-
wagon guy,
Yeah.
and so you can't get a wagon today, but you can get something close. So I actually have a Jeep Grand Cherokee L, which is a Grand Cherokee just with a third seat.
What
And,
year?
2021.
Okay.
So
But that's
my.
classified as an SUV, isn't it?
I call it a wagon. It
No,
probably
I know.
isn't.
I'm
I
with
think
you.
it is classified as an
Is
SUV.
that a unibody as well?
I should know that answer. I don't know that.
think
If
I
it's
think-
2021, it has
I mean,
to.
Yeah,
I think
okay.
it is.
It
I
has
mean,
to.
there's,
Yeah.
I mean, well, like there's still some manufacturers doing body on frame, SUVs if you want to call it that or whatever. But I would say most likely it's probably a unibody, which would make it a SUV versus a wagon on a truck. Because the Wagoneer is on a truck chassis, right?
Yeah, it's so the Wagoneer and the
Wagoneer.
Grand. Yeah, right. That's right. It's on a truck chassis. That's correct. Yep.
Do these tie in with? Remember, Jeep made pickups for a while.
I've got one.
Do you? What are those called?
Can we do a show on that someday?
Yeah.
Totally.
I have an
pickup.
80 J10,
Is that what it's
which
called?
is called
a
a,
J10?
which is called a Gladiator.
Gladiator.
So the same
Okay.
year
I had one.
that the
Well, the new
Wagoneer
one.
was debuted in '63, they debuted the Gladiator, which the front was the same, of course, but then there was a pickup bed that didn't change at all, and that production ran till about 1987. And the reason that died is Chrysler had bought AMC at that point, and they didn't want Jeep pickup sales eating into Dodge Ram sales. So Lee Iacocca killed the Gladiator program. But I picked one up years ago. It's an 80, and today it only has 25,000 miles on it.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
Wow.
And I bought that from an old country farmer in North Carolina.
I waited when they.
What was yours, Gabe? What was yours called?
Well, mine was called the Gladiator.
It was
they
a Gladiator?
They revived it. They made it from the regular the Wranglers, but they made it a truck with a pickup.
but yours was body on frame, right? It wasn't unibody.
Yeah, it's a Jeep. It
I
was
mean,
a-
I rode in it. It
Yeah.
rode like a truck.
Yeah,
I
it's
mean,
it
was trucky.
It was a legit truck. It was a mid-sized truck or
Yeah.
compact truck, whatever you
Yeah.
want to call it. But I loved it. I waited a long time for it because I've had two Wranglers,
Mhm.
and they were cool, but they're a little too small.
Mhm.
And the ones that I had weren't the greatest. But when they came out with the Gladiator, I was like, oh, sweet, I got a bed, and supposedly it could tow. It's not very good at towing. The brakes are terrible, and that's the only reason I got rid of it is because it couldn't tow enough.
Mm-hmm.
You know, but I loved that truck. It was a great truck.
Mhm.
You know, so I really liked the Gladiator.
And what year was it?
It was a 2021.
Okay.
Wow.
All right.
Yeah, I had it 3 years, got rid of it, and
Was it
truck
was it silver?
white.
White.
Yeah.
So why do you hate them so much? SUVs.
SUVs?
Yeah. What is it?
They're
Did they hit you or
soulless.
something?
No.
Somebody
They're
brought
yeah.
something?
They
Hurt you,
abused
Dan.
me. They put soap in a sock and beat me with. No, SUVs just to me are. We talk crossovers, right? Maybe it's crossovers I hate more than legit SUVs, but it's kind of like the truck thing. It's like what's this new truck that's coming out? The Slate, the one that Bezos
The EV
is
truck?
backing.
Oh, yeah, right.
Yeah, the EV truck. And people are having very spirited discourse on the forums, which I've partaken. and it's kind of
sure.
like and we get into this whole thing about trucks. Now I've owned several trucks, and I've hauled outrigger canoes, 7 of them for a load of 15,000 pounds. I had a 31-foot trailer, fifth wheel, and I hauled work gear in it. So for me, and I grew up on a ranch, so to me a truck is a tool. But as we know, statistically, it's like 88% of truck drivers have never taken it off road.
Mm-hmm.
They carry one, bag of fertilizer from Home Depot a year. It's like, so, and once again, I'm a capitalist. Like, buy what you want. It's great. But I do like to make fun of those people because it's just like, I call them poser. It's a poser truck. You have a truck, you're a poser. And SUVs are kind of the car version of that. It's like you got this big badass SUV, and it's like, if you're a soccer mom, minivans are better for hauling kids than SUVs. They just are.
Yeah.
But SUV, we don't have minivans anymore, right? No one's selling them. No one's making them. So
I think the Pacifica and the
yeah,
Odyssey are still,
Chrysler sells a lot
the
of
people
those
that
in the
do
Odyssey.
have the minivans are selling them. It just not everybody's making them.
Yeah, true.
Because
True.
just like my wife, she likes the SUV proposition because she's higher up. She wants to be higher up. Which
Yeah, that's the thing.
I can't knock that. You
Yeah.
know.
I get it.
I don't have a problem with SUVs like Dan does or whatever.
I never thought about it really.
Because,
to be honest.
but I will say this: I've never heard anybody talk about an SUV like they did about their uncle's Aerostar van that got them to Reno and back. Horror stories with that. Like the family trip. I'm a wagon guy too. I love wagons.
Wagons are cooler than minivans or SUVs.
No, wagons are by
we don't
far-
get wagons anymore.
No,
though,
wagons
so.
are to me are way cooler than all those things, but they're also different vehicles. A wagon guy
True.
is not always going to be a truck guy, and a truck guy is not always going to be a wagon guy. And most car guys kind of are wagon guys, but they don't want to admit it, maybe. But they're just different vehicles.
I think for me, it comes back to the death of the sedan. I have a sedan sitting out there. I like sedans. I've always liked sedans, and they've all been replaced by crossovers, right? So is a crossover sort of a combination of a car and an SUV? Is that
Yes,
what
that's exactly what it is.
Yeah, so I guess maybe it's crossovers I hate more with some residual hate for SUVs.
Residual hate.
But see, wagons, like David, like that, I call that a wagon. I mean, to me, that's a wagon. I grew up and, friends and neighbors had those, and we hauled around to summer camp in them, and, those are cool.
That the term SUV wasn't around when the Wagoneer was in its prime, right? So that's a fairly recent.
Yeah, it's probably like 80s,
acronym,
80s onward or something, 90s onward.
But it's a wagon. I mean, you put that that body on a car chassis, it's a legit station wagon at that point, right? Yeah.
But I'm surprised, being car guys, you guys are such car guys that doesn't bother you. That, like, drive down the street and just do a count. How many sedans do you see? Coupes or four doors? It's like you don't see them anymore because everyone drives a stupid crossover. It's just like,
as long as I don't have to drive it,
it bugs me.
The word on the street, because I look at YouTube and these channels I follow with people talking about the car industry. The trucks and SUVs have become so expensive that the big American automakers are maybe beginning to rethink that they should start getting back into the car business.
Yeah,
you look at Toyota.
I've been seeing that. Yeah,
Toyota, they sell a lot of Corollas and Camrys. You look at Nissan, they're having their trouble, but they sell a lot of four-door, cars.
Let's see hot hatches come back. I mean, those were
They're
cool.
affordable.
I had one. I had a GTI. I mean, hot hatches are the coolest damn cars that were ever on the road. Practically, they're great.
Everybody wants especially the younger generation. They want the EVs. They want the disposable car. That's why I think, I don't know if the slate will do well or not. I think it's an interesting proposition for $25,000. Granted, you get nothing with that. You get four wheels, doors, and you provide your own stereo.
Well, it's the 150-mile range it's going to kill. And I got some arguments with people about hauling. And to me, hauling is, if you have a pickup truck, it's what you're hauling
No
in
one's
the
hauling
bed.
shit in those things.
No. It's what you're hauling in the bed, not a trailer. And people are fixated like
no one's hauling shit
is
in that
only
thing.
a trailer.
No one's hauling anything.
But
in
it's
those damn
rated
things.
at like 1,100 pounds hauling capacity. And I was like, that's kind of cool. That's the part about it
That's
I
including
like.
drivers too.
Oh,
it only
is
has
that?
two
I think
people.
it is.
That's not including just the bed.
I don't think it's just the bed. But okay, look, even if it is, most guys or girls that own that truck are not going to be hauling jack shit in that thing, except maybe their electric bikes.
Well, it'll be interesting to see how many, because you can do it as a 5-passenger too,
Yeah,
rather than the
Look,
bed.
I think it's cool because you can customize it however you want.
Yeah.
I'm all about customization. I'm the guy, I want to tinker with all the stuff.
So you're going to end up buying a Slate, is what you're telling us.
Nah. Although I do like the chassis. Honestly, I'd rather have a Ford Maverick.
Yeah.
Yeah. But like the truck, I'm a big guy. Small truck doesn't work for me. I tried it; it doesn't work for me.
Yeah.
So, but I like the proposition because just the price point alone.
Well,
I don't care if it's gas, diesel.
Well, I was in
electric.
there on the forums, Gabe. You would have been proud of me. I'm in there on the forums saying, if this had a small turbocharged diesel, I would buy
Dan's
4 of
trolling
these
the
things.
EV
Yes,
truck forums.
I am.
What's your handle so we can find you on the forums?
It's whatever Reddit gives you. I don't know.
SUV Slayer or something.
There you go.
Sedan slut. I don't know.
That's a Dan Slayer.
Shit, what we were talking about?
We've gotten way off topic.
what-
My
what-
apologies.
No, we're talking about the
Yeah.
new Wagoneer.
Yeah,
you
that's
know,
it.
the
Yes.
Grand Wagoneer, how Dan hates it because it's an SUV and not an
Yes.
actual wagon or
Yeah.
a truck. I like it. I mean, I can't buy one because it's not reliable enough, but I think they're awesome.
Aren't they like $100,000?
Yeah,
too?
over $100,000. I'm like, damn, dude, yeah.
Well, here's the other miss on those. I mean, they came out with them. The marketing was, we want to compete with Range Rover. We want to compete with Cadillac, all these high-end. So when you take your SUV to Range Rover to get service, I don't have one. I've never had one, but just go with me on this one.
You're not a masochist.
When you pull up to the Range Rover service department and you're in there for an oil change or regular service, what did they give you for the day?
Another Range Rover.
Yeah.
Exactly. You go into your Jeep dealer with a Wagoneer, and you pull up. What do?
No idea.
They
What do
say
do?
our shuttle will take you to your house or your office. He'll be back in like a half hour.
So no loaner.
Go have some coffee. If you're going to pay that much money for a vehicle like that,
Yeah.
you would expect a white glove experience.
Yes. There ain't no gloves at Jeep dealers.
You're not getting
Yeah,
it. You're getting
yeah.
the same treatment as the
Yeah.
guy who's pulling in with his $150,000, Renegade or Compass or something.
That's interesting because
That's a good point.
every
Yeah.
Jeep dealership that I've worked with, except for one, was a terrible experience. And I'm sorry, the one right down the street from us, Crown Dodge, terrible experience.
Hmm.
And I'm not the only one. I don't know if that's a common thing with Dodge, Jeep, Ram, but you're right. If I spent $100,000 or more
Mhm.
at a dealership, I'm not pulling into the dealership. Actually, matter of fact, that's why I haven't bought another Ram truck because I loved my Ram 1500.
Mhm.
I didn't buy it because the service was so terrible near me that I won't do it. And I take my cars to the dealership. I'm just one of those guys. I'm here's the keys. But it was the terrible experience.
Wow.
So I'm like, that's why I won't do it.
Well, that's
Yeah.
a great point that David brings up. I wouldn't have thought about that.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't have either one, but I could see that
Yeah,
being
but you
a
have
huge difference.
But you have a Honda, and the Honda experience is good, isn't it?
Oh, I've had a great experience with
Exactly.
Honda.
Dan has a Toyota. His Toyota experience
Yeah,
is good.
Toyota deals generally are pretty
Yeah.
good.
You I have a Tesla. I don't have any experience because I don't take it in for maintenance. So we all have these good experiences with our cars. That's why we buy these cars. The dealership experience, I believe, matters.
For sure.
Totally does, yeah.
And as cars become more computers with 4 wheels, it matters
Yeah.
even more because you
But
can't work on
the
them anymore.
I mean, at $100,000, even at $75,000 or $50,000, there needs to be a level of concierge type service. And the dealers that get it, like Range Rover, BMW, Audi,
Yep.
Mercedes, they put you in the car because they want to sell more of
Yep.
those cars to you, and it works.
And you get your car back, it's washed.
Yeah,
Yeah.
You get your Wagoneer or Grand Wagoneer back, it's not washed.
yeah.
That makes a difference.
And I hope if somebody's watching this and disagrees with it, chime in because I would love to know what dealerships, like Jeep, Ram dealerships, they have had great experiences with. Because, like I said, it's been 1 in 10 that I found that has been a positive experience. Dealing with like the kind of, I don't want to call it lower level, but it is like treated as a lower. It's not concierge type service.
How's the Porsche dealer experience, CJ?
I don't go to the Porsche dealer.
He's got old
I got a
Porsche.
mechanic who
You've
goes-
never, you
yeah.
got a private
It's an
mechanic,
87,
and
so
you've
Does your
never been to the
mechanic
Porsche
drop
dealer.
screws, or is he pretty good at not dropping screws?
man. Oh,
I'm just
Tell us
saying.
about it,
David,
CJ. Tell us about it.
So David pulls in this morning right in his beautiful green 1964 Jeep, and I'm working on my 87 Porsche, and I had removed the defroster vent from the dashboard, right? And so I just put it in. I painted the screws. They look beautiful. I'm doing this like trying to get them screwed back in. Damn, I dropped one down into the vent.
Now it's going to be rattling around forever.
Yeah, I
right?
know. So now I'm not touching the car because I don't want it to drop any farther down into the system. Thank you for bringing that up, David.
My pleasure. I advise you to go down the street to the auto parts
going
place
to.
and get a little thing with a magnet on the end and
Yep.
spend the
Yeah.
next
And
5
start
hours
fishing?
trying to get it.
Can I use one of your fishing poles out of the back?
Yeah, you can do that. I got some monofilament out there.
Those of you watching and listening, do you want to see CJ try to find and fish this screw? If so, go ahead and like, subscribe, and follow us. And check out our tip line and message us if you want to see CJ go try to find a screw.
Because if I can't get that
10-cent
screw, I got two problems if I can't get that screw. One, I'm going to hear a little rattle.
Bug you the
down
rest
there,
of your life.
Drive me crazy
That
forever.
would be bad.
And I got to go replace the damn screw.
That's why we should put an exhaust on your car so your car's louder. You won't even hear the screw.
Or turn the radio up
Turn
more.
up the tune, CJ.
Man.
Yeah, turn up your
I love
Duran
the
Duran
sound,
or
I
whatever
love
you
the sound of
listen
the flat six, but all right.
I did get
All
that
right.
advice when I had my Pinto. It was making a
in his
bad
Pinto.
noise, and a mechanic was like, "Get a good stereo, crank it up, man." It's like it's not worth fixing.
Oh, man. Okay, so you guys have been researching something really
Hold on.
cool. No, what?
No, you're right. Well,
Are you going to make fun of me
no,
more
no,
about
no,
my
no,
mechanic skills
No,
or
no.
something?
Before we segue into this is the right segue, is that because you have the original Wagoneer and there's the new one, yours falls under the smog qualifications.
that's
It's a
true.
pre-74 car.
Yeah.
So
Oh,
you never
yeah.
have to deal with smog,
Yep.
right? But you also have
Brakes.
Stellantis products that do require smog,
Correct.
right? That are post 74.
Mhm.
Would you say that the experience is worth it? Like the old school versus the new school, you don't have to smog it, but this one you have to smog. Do you say, like, if you had to choose one or the other, which one would you choose?
Definitely non-smog.
Yeah.
So, funny you bring that up. My 80J10, I got a registration thing in the mail. And for those people listening or watching that aren't from California, I think it's every second year, you get a
every
thing
other year.
that says you must take your car to a smog thing. So that's my job in the next 3 or 4 days. I've got to take my J10, which I don't drive it a lot. I want to keep the miles off of it. I got to take it off the rack. I got to drive it off. I've got to make sure the engine's nice and warm.
Warm it up, yeah.
Then I got to drive down to the smog thing, and I got to sit there and wait while they do the dynamometer and the probe up the tailpipe and all this stuff. And then I got to hope that it passes. Because if it doesn't, you get to do the same thing over again after you fix whatever they said was wrong.
Yeah.
It doesn't seem like that's a big hassle, but it is.
It
It's a
is.
nightmare.
Because it takes time
It's a
out of your day.
Time and money.
Yeah.
Especially that's if you can get it to pass.
Yes.
Sometimes a lot of cars don't pass. The catalytic converter fails. It's this or that or the other, and then you spend more money, time, blah, blah, blah. It is a hassle, and it's every other year. Plus, you've got to give California your money.
Right.
So one other fun thing for those who don't live in California, on my 85 Grand Wagoneer, I got it smogged one of my times. And the first thing they do is they remove the gas cap.
Yep.
And if it's missing or if there are cracks, they fail you.
That happens in one Porsche.
Wow.
Every
That
time.
happened
So
on my
stupid.
85 Grand Wagoneer. I brought it in
Yep.
from Texas, and they failed it just before they even started it up.
Yep.
It was cracked. They said, fail. Come back, and we'll try it again. Then they failed me again when I came back 30 minutes later because I went down to the parts store and got a new cap. The little hose from the exhaust manifold to the underside of the air cleaner, old school stuff, warms up the carburetor. It wasn't there.
Jeez.
Failed.
So did you have to go to the auto parts
So then
store
we're
again?
back to the auto parts store. They sell them. They sell them by the foot or something. You just get what you need. And
We
you
could
cut
do
it
a
off.
whole show on smog check.
Smog nightmare.
Nightmare, yeah.
Because
Yeah.
I know so many people, myself included, that had to go through the same gauntlet, with a different car. And then, like you said, hope is the right word.
Talk
Every
about-
year you get the notice, like, oh man, I hope my car
Talk
passes.
about getting it up the tailpipe.
So I got
for sure.
I was in Oklahoma last year, and I was telling this story to some good friends of mine that live in Oklahoma about smog, and they're like, "What are these words that you speak?
What is smog?
What's smog?
is
What is?"
smog?
Oh, you cursing over here?
Other states, they don't do it.
Nah.
Obviously, the populous states do: California, Washington, New York, Jersey.
Well,
whatever.
this is part of what Jay Leno was talking about with the
Yes.
Leno's laws. And he says,
Yes.
it's crazy. You've got Nevada, Arizona,
Yeah.
right, butted up right up against California. You could drive right over the border, and you're illegal in California.
You know what's really interesting about that is that all military diesel vehicles have no catalytic converter, no.
Yeah,
no
they're
emissions,
exempt.
No
They're
BMS.
totally
all
exempt. Yeah.
But we plebes cannot.
Plebes.
You know,
Well, Leno's law, from the headline I saw yesterday, Leno's law is dead. It's not happening.
it's not dead; it's curbed.
It's
but
curbed, but
but-
for all intents
That's
and
politics'
purposes.
way of saying it.
But see,
Yeah.
the thing is, it's not going to matter because
Well, let's talk about
yeah.
that.
Well,
Why is it
well,
not going to
this
matter?
is the segue that we were.
This
gonna
is
get
the
into.
research you two have been working on.
Yes.
right?
Why is
Okay.
it not going to matter, Gabe?
Well, because the Trump administration, or the EPA, I should say, the EPA is doing some house cleaning with the California Air Resources Board, known as CARB, and they're finding some fraud allegedly. I don't know for sure, but it looks like they're finding something, and a lot of their mandate power is getting taken away. The first one being their emissions mandates, which, if you live in California, you know that they're ridiculous. The mandates are ridiculous. What they have to go through. So what does that mean? If smog checks go away, which it sounds like it might, California needs to find a way to raise money,
Generate revenue.
right? So this is, you guys can look this up. They are proposing California Air Resource Board approved brake pads and rotors, because the brake dust that comes off of it is emissions, according to them. It's
particulate, right?
Yeah, particulate emissions, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
And they're also trying to pass this mileage tax. So
Which they've talked about for a long time.
They've talked
I've heard that over the years.
yeah,
Yes.
and it's the most ridiculous thing on the planet. God help us if that ever.
They're going to
passes.
tax you every mile you drive off your odometer settings, right?
Because they want to find their money, especially.
So I
if
have a
the-
question.
Mhm.
If they're going to tax you for every mile you drive, does that mean they're going to take that tax out of the gas pump that they charge you for pumping gas?
Of course
Ooh,
not.
good
Of course
one.
not.
Yeah.
So they're going to
But
double
see-
dip you?
But
Probably.
See, here's the thing. Now that they're pushing this whole EV thing, and a lot of people are going EV in California, and in California, an EV kind of makes sense, especially if you're a short commuter. They have to find a way to get your tax revenue because you're not paying at the pump anymore, right? And if you have solar, you're not paying it through the SCE or the power DWP or whatever. So if you have an EV, they can charge you for the tax, and your EV has brakes, so they can hit you with that. Could you imagine what a CARB-approved brake pad and rotor swap change or whatever would be? And that means you have to go to safety inspections, which we don't really have in California.
So we talked about this before. What is the difference between a CARB-approved brake pad and the old school,
Not
what
a
would be
damn thing.
considered illegal one?
Not a damn thing.
So can I drive to Arizona for a brake job?
No, because it has to have a CARB. See, this is what they
CARB
did. This
approved
is
brake
what they
pads.
did.
How do
have
they
in
know?
Arizona.
This is what they did to all the hot rodders and the tuners and all that stuff. They did this to us for years, since the 90s. When you buy an air filter or whatever, you had to have the 50-state CARB legal. CARB legal is a big. It's a big, like, dirty word now. CARB legal air filter, which means that the manufacturer had to go to the Air Resources Board to get their executive order CARB approved stamp on it, so they can sell it in California.
And if it doesn't have that stamp,
Then you
it's not approved.
And so when the smog check guy pops the hood, sees the no CARB sticker on the intake or the exhaust or the header or whatever, fail.
Yep.
I'm like, really?
It's such a scam.
Such a scam. So, I mean, I'm not trying to be a conspiracy theorist and boo-hoo government, although government sucks. But this is ridiculous. Where do you draw the line? When are we as a people going to fight back? And I'm sure, Leno backing this thing is great because it got it into the spotlight. A lot
right.
of people, and when they go to vote for our state, representatives, maybe they'll kind of think about this stuff, because people don't realize that we're getting taxed on gas. We're getting taxed at the smog checks thing. That's not going to just a smog shop. That's going to the state of California as well.
Well, for viewers we have in other states, if you've never been to California, we pay between $1 and $2 a gallon more than every other state, pretty much, not all of them, but most of them in the union. And we pay I think it's like $1.50 a gallon now in taxes. Have you looked at a pump lately? I think it's like $1.50 a gallon we're paying in taxes, right?
Well, the other thing about our gas is it's CARB gas. It's not the regular gas you get in Texas or Oklahoma.
Yeah, it's
so
ethanol,
Formulated
right?
differently.
so there's gas that's cheaper, which goes to most states. Then there's reformulated gas. Then there's CARB gas.
Mm-hmm.
And there's only 3 refineries in the world that make CARB gas.
Cha-ching.
One of them's in Texas, and then there's a place in India that actually brings our fuel in.
Really?
Yeah,
India?
Yeah. And so there is Phillips 66 is shutting down a refinery here in California. They're shutting
Benicia, right?
They're shutting it down in October, I think. They're still going to own the land. You know, they're not giving that up. But the refinery they're giving up because of the regulations California requires for the few people who refine CARB gas in California. It's becoming too expensive to refine CARB gas in California, and that's going to suck 80,000 barrels a day out of the system. I know all this because there's a
So who's gonna bet that we're gonna be at $8 a gallon soon? $8 a gallon for gas in California, I bet. Because
who wants to
5
make
plus?
who outside of California, which refinery, who wants to make those 80,000 barrels or over time more just for California? Nobody. Because they're doing just fine.
As long as they can charge a lot more for it.
They're doing
maybe.
just fine
Yeah.
making gas
And
for
anything
everybody
coming in
else.
from India is going to have a tariff on it, right?
Yep.
So that's going to go up.
Maybe $10 a gallon here.
It could be.
Yeah, could be.
Then one
Get
other
those
factoid.
European
Sorry to bore you
prices.
with all these factoids.
No, we like them.
If a ship from Texas with refined fuel comes to California, it has to be a specially built ship. It's called the Jones Act. And now it's not from a foreign port to a California port. It's from an American port to an American port. The ship has to be a Jones Act vessel, which is built differently. It costs more to build it. And so that's thrown into the mix in terms of cost. So there's a
Wow.
lot of variables which make fuel in California so expensive.
I'm going to buy a tent, go live in the national forest someplace. Oh, wait a minute. No, that's illegal.
it's illegal.
Too. You can't do that.
No, this begs. I mean, California, from a regulatory standpoint, is basically hurting everyone. You must drive an EV. Period. Even if you don't want to. So if you're like us and you're rebellious and you say, I don't want to drive a stupid EV, other than Gabe. You're going to be paying $10 a gallon for gas. There's going to be fewer gas stations. There's going to be all this registration stuff, and
So I could just hear like the one or two guys that are gonna watch this show and comment, be like, good, because you want bad air. You don't care about the environment. Horseshit. I absolutely care about the environment,
100%.
and so do our manufacturers. But there's got to be a reasonable amount of, because there's always going to be emissions. The whole zero emissions thing is a fallacy. There's always going to be some kind of emission. It's just the
emission to create the electricity for the
exactly. People don't
yeah.
realize. A lot of people don't realize where electricity for your EV comes from.
Right.
Which is fine. You want to be stupid, fine, okay, but don't start capping us because you think it's better for the environment if the oil refinery shuts down. That is going to affect you in more ways than one, my friend.
Mm-hmm.
It's just it's negligence. I mean, you don't really understand how this economy works. I'm not trying to sound like a capitalist, although I am, but
Well, we live in an oil-based economy. Our economy is oil-based. Nothing to do with cars. Just
don't get me
everything.
started on the oil thing.
I know. We're gonna go
Because
on tangents
the whole
here.
stop oil jackasses, and I'm sorry, you are a jackass because the stuff that they wear, the phones that they have, all created with oil. I'm like, you stop oil, you stop everything that you're using right now to exist. A lot of people don't know this, so that petroleum products, plastics come from barrel of oil.
They don't have a clue.
Oh my gosh, I just want to fucking choke somebody.
Let's go back to 1860.
Yeah,
Now see how much fun it was. The candles.
Yeah.
You do your work.
Horses.
Air quality, right? Growing up in the San Fernando Valley in the 80s and 90s, we saw the haze. It was bad.
Mm-hmm.
And the cars were gross polluting or whatever.
Yeah.
You don't see that nearly as much anymore. On certain bad days, maybe during the summer, you might see a little bit of that or whatever.
Inversion layer.
Yeah. And it counts. Is that what it's called?
That's what it's called.
Damn, I'm learning something new every day.
Inversion layer just holds it in the valley. Just that cap.
But
just
it goes
holds in.
away. It never stays. But you have good days and you have bad days. You have good weather, you have bad weather. This stuff changes. The climate does change, right? The climate does change every day. I'm sorry, I'm going on this rant, but it's just ridiculous because like E85, it's corn. We burn corn, and you can't convert your car to E85. It's illegal for you to do that in the state of California when it's actually better for the environment to burn E85 than it is, and it just happens to help you make a ton of power in your car. So it's just ridiculous. So ridiculous, and I wish Okay, sorry. I'm gonna stop talking because this is just.
I was about to say, was this on our agenda?
No, it wasn't in our agenda. But I got triggered. I'm sorry. I got triggered. Everybody.
Microaggression.
Sorry. I got triggered. I got triggered.
I will say this. So the whole point, this whole conversation started with a 1964 Jeep, right?
I know.
And what did Dave do? He went out and spent good money to have it rebuilt so it didn't pollute the environment.
The engine.
The engine.
Yeah, rebuilt.
What did you
them.
do
rebuilt the
to
motor.
rebuild it? It's like a factory build, or did you do some tighter clearances?
Just took it. My buddy did it. Shipped it down to L.A. They pulled the engine, resurfaced the heads, new pistons, rings, and the reason I did it is because it would just blow blue smoke. And I am mindful of pollution.
And most car guys are.
Yeah.
Yeah, no one wants to
guys
see
and gals,
no one
yeah.
wants to see smoke coming out of their
and
car.
there's a
other than
point.
those diesel
There's a
guys.
point where when you have to put in a quart of oil, every second or third fuel stop or whatever. Okay, you can not drive the car. That's no fun. Or if you have the ability to have a occasional use car and rebuild the engine, which I had that ability, then do that because it just feels.
Sure.
I just feel better knowing I'm not smoking somebody out back there.
Well, also
Did they do the valves?
Yeah.
Yeah, new valves.
Also, it's you're being efficient. The car runs better, it burns cleaner. And the more efficient a car runs, the cleaner it burns. It's just that's how it works. You mentioned rolling coal on the diesels. That's just all that is unburnt fuel, which is so stupid. Because your car could actually be running better and faster if you leaned out the fuel mixture
More
a little bit.
horsepower, more torque.
Exactly.
Right.
So I know guys think it's cool and all that stuff, but like I said, it's just inefficiency. And I think we all can agree, as car guys, we all want to be efficient because efficient means power. Efficient means more savings, and it's a win-win, right? So.
Like, follow, subscribe, and send all hate mail to Gabe.
I'll take it. But if you like it,
Yeah,
send it to me too.
or all accolades to Gabe too.
That's right. Exactly. No, I'm a lot of people out there. And this is what we want to do: get the conversation going, and this will, because this is a pretty passionate conversation, especially if you're in California. If you're not in California, it's still interesting.
You're just making fun of us saying,
Yeah,
why do
they
these
go, what the
clowns
hell?
live in California?
Come on, move to Ohio. Move to Ohio.
I want. See, we've had guys that call Dan a boomer or me whatever because we
They
talk
call me
crap
the boomer, by the
about.
way. They call me.
Oh
the boomer.
well, whatever. But they call because we're dogging on EVs like they might be soulless or whatever. Look, I like EVs. Even if you want to rod them, do some stuff, whatever, I don't care. But this thing affects both EV drivers and ICE engine drivers.
This affects everyone.
Everybody,
Unless
and
you
this
don't
is why we
drive.
should all
Yeah.
be pissed off at the government's overreach by trying to do this stuff because they are taking advantage of us, and it's bullcrap. And this is why we need to stand up and we need to write to our senators and our congressmen and be like, dude, can you do something about this, please? Or else we're not going to vote your ass in office next term.
And send us the comments, and we'll forward it to the lawmakers. How's that?
We're not allowed to do that, though.
Who cares? We'll do it anyway.
I don't know.
Print it out and send it off to your congressman. Either way, we want you to comment, right?
Yes,
Isn't that the whole point?
yes.
Send us comments,
Have-
whether you
have a
like what we're
dialogue
saying or
about
hate what
this
we're
stuff.
saying.
Yeah.
Send us a comment.
Yeah, for sure.
Right? Okay.
No, for sure. We want to have a conversation. So
Yes.
whether you think we're right or wrong, or you have a factoid
Let us know.
that you want to share with us, tell us because it's important. We're just a vessel here. We want everybody to have a voice here. So
That's it. All right, David, thank you so much for joining us. You're going to bring maybe the Gladiator at some point, right? Wouldn't that be fun?
All you have to do is ask.
if it passes smog.
I'll let you know.
If you can get it here. That's right. All right. Hey, so that was the other thing. I did a ride-along with David on his 1964. So we're going to have a separate video for that,
Yes.
right? You guys
Plug
gonna
it,
put that
plug
together?
it, yeah.
It's really fun. So got a bunch of thumbs ups. All right. Thanks for watching and listening, everybody, and we will see you west of Tulsa.